Hey everybody, it is Mandy at Chapel Forge. So in today's video, we're going to talk about multiple income streams on your homestead. So if you listen to like different podcasts or you read different blogs or whatever, you'll find all kinds of opinions about how many types of incomes there are. For us, I feel like we have 4 types of income, and then under each of those headings, there's multiple different things happening. So the 4 types of income I would say that we have would be investments and passive income, self-employment, employment, and non-monetary income. So first we'll talk about self-employment. So we own Chapel Hill Forge. That's our main business. That is a blacksmith and a metal fabricator. We do lots of things with Chapel Hill Forge. So I'm selling eggs and making goat milk soap from the homestead. And, you know, the great thing about those income streams is I can write that stuff off. So I can write off my chicken supplies, my goat supplies. I sell a couple turkeys and I can write off my turkey supplies, things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to selling things that you are generating from your homestead. I can write off my chicken coop. When we set up goats this year, I write off my goat shed. I can write off my grain, stuff like that. There's a million ways to make money on your homestead. My friend Missy and I have a podcast called The Wayward Homesteaders. We did a podcast about making money off of your garden. So lots of ways to make money off of your garden: plant starts, produce, seeds. There's just a million ways to make money off of your garden. So if you're getting into homesteading or you're already homesteading and you're trying to figure out, you got to save where you can. So if you can write all that stuff off and it's stuff you're already doing, why not? So obviously there's legality things like, you should probably have proper insurance and set up a business and, all those kinds of things. So I'm not saying you just like turnkey and like, boom, here we have a business and we're selling all these things. We've been in business for 6 years and we've built this up as we went. But so our main income source is our self-employment, and we're always building on our self-employment. This year we're going to be adding in leather. So we got a clicker. I'm sure we'll be doing a video about that soon. And basically we'll be able to make things like belts and aprons and really cool stuff. So we loved the name Chapel Hill Forge because forge really is such a broad term. Like, it doesn't just mean blacksmithing. You can forge lots of things. You can forge the milk into soap. You can forge the leather into a belt. So forge just really means like transforming something. And so we just loved that as like a nice broad umbrella name. And it really meant that we could take the business a zillion directions, and we kind of have. It's evolved over time. We aren't doing some things we were doing when we started the business. So if you're already an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, you just love figuring out new things and learning, self-employment can be a really great way to earn a living. Okay, number 2, regular employment. So while we do not love regular employment on the whole, and I left my job, we started our business because Zad was a state constable, and that whole system just kind of got rearranged. We moved, and so it was time to move on from that, and that's how we got into self-employment. And then eventually we pulled me from my job, and I was working 35 hours a week, commuting 45 minutes each way, and we were just like, okay, we're done with this. However, Zad has a job part-time and seasonally. So I've mentioned before that he works for the local hot air balloon crew. So he sets up balloons, tears them down, chases the balloons, things like that. It's a seasonal job for us. So it's like generally April to October-ish, weather permitting. So that's kind of the season here in Pennsylvania as far as hot air balloons go. We love it because he literally can pick when he works. So they send out some dates. He says, yeah, I can work these. If he needs to take the week off, he can take the week off. When I had the baby last July, he took like a month off. So we love that type of employment for other people, or being employed by other people, because it's super flexible. I realize not everyone has or can have that kind of flexibility. I love having that other income stream that is not just reliant on us. So plenty of people are self-employed and they literally just rely on themselves, and that's fine. But I love having a backup or just another layer of protection. So, if I got sick or Zad got sick or whatever, I love that we have kept our minds open, that, there are other jobs out there where you can work for people and it doesn't have to dictate your entire life. When I was working in an office, and I liked that job, and I learned a lot. It was web sales. So, I learned a lot about marketing and things like that. But it was a 9 to 5, essentially. I was commuting, and it was just taking up a lot of my time that I eventually just really didn't enjoy. But there are options out there for part-time work or seasonal work or things like that you can supplement your income, but maybe you're not necessarily tied to a 9 to 5 job. So keep your mind open about things like that. There are a lot of people that are just looking for hard workers. And, Zad, for instance, likes being off the homestead once in a while. I am very much a homebody and a hermit, and I would be here just all the time. But he likes being off of the homestead sometimes. And so it's perfect for him. He gets to get up, go to a job. He loves the physical motions of getting in his truck, driving to work, etc. Now I say that very hesitantly, I guess, because, I'm not saying that Zad wants to go off and work, like leave at 5 a.m. and not get home until 6 p.m. kind of thing. But a couple days a week, he enjoys that kind of motion. So this is very much a personal decision. Like, this whole thing is very much a personal decision, how your money comes in, who you work for, how long you work for those people, etc. So you really need to sit down with your spouse, your family, or whoever matters to you, and figure out what type of income is going to work for your family. So those are first two, self-employment and regular employment. Number 3 would be investments / passive income. So Zad and I have different types of investments. Like we have investments in the normal things that people have, stock market and a Roth and things like that. And then we have some other things that we are invested in, and they're mostly passive. I mean, obviously we're not like driving to New York City every day and like being actively part of the stock market or something. So they are somewhat passive in that degree. Now, I always say passive with a little bit of caution in that you do still need to file taxes and keep up with the paperwork, that whatever paperwork might be involved. You may have a relationship with like a financial advisor or an accountant that you need to keep up with, just to keep your affairs in order. So, that's something to look into and figure out what investments you might enjoy. So just for instance, Bud, my 12-year-old, we did a video on this back in probably August. And it was ways to make money as a young entrepreneur. So when Bud started his business, he wanted to do something with his money, and besides just like blow it on whatever. And so he invested in the stock market. So for him, he invested in John Deere. He loves John Deere. He loves tractors. He loves farming. So this was fun for him. And at the time he was maybe 9-ish. So it was fun for him because it was something that he enjoyed. He had a vested interest in. So figure out what you're going to enjoy, what makes sense for you, what you're comfortable with, what maybe aligns with like your values, things like that. So that's investment. That's income stream number 3. Okay. Income stream number 4. This one, some people are going to look at me and be like, that's not really an income stream, but I would argue that it is. So non-monetary income. Non-monetary income would be things like preserving food, figuring out how to save money and not waste things. So some examples would be, I buy food in season or I grow it myself. So for instance, like obviously I have a garden and I am growing food in my garden pretty inexpensively. Now, obviously there was the investment to build the garden, but once the garden was built, it cost me a little seed to plant, and I might get 20 pounds of tomatoes from my little seed that cost me half a cent or whatever. And if I saved the seed, even less than that. So there's that. And then I buy food in season like apples, peaches, other things that I don't grow here on my homestead, blueberries or whatever, when they're cheap. So instead of spending, $7 on a bag of apples. I don't even know if that's the right price because I never buy apples at the store, but $7 on a bag of apples, and I get 10 apples in the bag in the middle of December. I bought 3 or 4 bushels of apples in season from my local farmer and supported the local economy and a local farmer and canned it into applesauce or freeze-dried slices or whatever I did. And I was able to save money that way. So I guess this one I'm just asking you to think outside the box a little bit, get outside of your head a little bit, and think about how much money you're saving by preserving your own food. Or, for us, there's always this argument, is it cheaper for you to raise your own eggs? I feel like the answer to that is it depends. We have about 70 chickens or so. I'm often selling several dozen eggs a week. So for us, at minimum, I'm not buying my own eggs. I'm not paying for my own eggs. And sometimes we're making a little bit of money off of it. And I'm able to put up dozens and dozens and dozens of eggs in egg season, if there is such a thing. Typically hens slow down when it starts to get colder, so you have a slower time. Most days I'm bringing in 4 or 5 dozen eggs this time of year. But soon, December, January, whatever, I'm probably not going to be bringing in that many. So instead of having to go down to my local store and buy them for $4 a dozen, I have them water glassed or pickled or salt cured or whatever, that I don't have to go spend, say we go through 3 dozen eggs a week, just for instance. That's $12 a week. That's almost $50 a month that I'm not spending on eggs because I took a little bit of time to preserve them in season. So things like this can really save you a lot of money. There are other ways too for non-monetary income. And I have a couple resources on our website. So at chapelforge.com, I have a blog, and I have cheap ways to preserve food. I have a couple YouTube videos about the places that I buy food and how I save money at those places. So check those things out. I'll link them in the description. But you can save money with, I know somebody's going to come at me about this, certain credit cards. So we have a credit card for Sam's Club and for Amazon, and then we have a Capital One card or whatever. So the Capital One card earns money, X% back on these types of purchases. The Amazon card, between Amazon and Sam's Club, I probably get at least $2,000 a year in free stuff from Amazon or from Sam's Club. So normally I get $1,000 from each card, and I can spend that $1,000 at Amazon and spend that $1,000 at Sam's Club. That's $2,000 a year that I'm getting for already spending the money that I was going to spend anyway. So, if I spend however much money at Sam's Club and they give me X amount back, and I think I get 5% back on the purchases at Sam's Club, I feel like this is a no-brainer. So yes, while there is an argument about credit cards and whatever, and you should be paying them off and all that kind of thing, don't be going into debt, and I totally agree with all of that. I feel like there is a place for credit cards, especially if you're already going to be spending the money. You might as well get some money back on it. So there are other ways too, like Ibotta, Fetch, things like that, where you can scan receipts and get that money back as an Amazon gift card or whatever. If you're a step tracker, Evidation is a great app that, you can slowly start to earn. I think I got a $10, maybe Amazon gift card from them recently. And all I did was wear my watch, which I'm already doing every day. So these I guess those are sort of monetary, but non-monetary income sources are such a great way to save money. And sometimes you have to get kind of creative about these kinds of things. And you really have to think outside the box. Instead of thinking, oh, well, I didn't get a $2,000 paycheck this month, or I don't know, whatever. Think about how you're not going to have to go buy that $4 jar of applesauce in December because you put up that jar of applesauce in August and it costs you maybe $1 or whatever it costs you. And if you're growing your own apples, even cheaper. So those would be my 4 income sources, ways to earn income. And then kind of the ways that we go about getting income from each of those sources. So if you have other cool, creative ways that you earn money on your income that you'd like to share, talk about, I love talking about this topic. It's probably one of my favorite topics. then, share those in the comments. If you have questions about any of these ways to earn income, let me know. I love chatting about this. You can email me at chapelforge@gmail.com. And definitely check out my blog. I always have ways on there about how to save money. And a lot of this stuff, once you invest in the equipment, whether that's a pressure canner, a water bath canner, a freeze dryer, I know that's a big investment. I have a lot of resources on my blog and on our podcast about freeze drying. These are great ways. If you look at those buckets of like emergency food, you're spending $150 on like this 5-gallon bucket of freeze dried food, when if you bought the freeze dryer and you kind of figured it out, you could freeze dry that same stuff for probably a couple dollars. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you next video.